Rocky's having a good rest there on the bed. He's looking pretty comfortable. There he is. There he is. Hi, Rocky. He's a grand old cat, he is. The heater is working excellent. See how I pronounce the C? Excellent. Yes, it's working excellently. Anyway, I got to get the garbage out shortly. I got to get ready to go to work. I've had my breakfast. And, yeah, I got to get ready to go to work. Had my leftover pork chop and some applesauce for breakfast. It was quite good. It was. Gave Rocky some of his wet food. Yeah, he enjoyed that, I think. He seemed to enjoy it. I just read a post on Facebook to say that the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Marine Recovery Unit, is going to be searching the Rideau River at Lower Reach Park, which is the park that I've one of the parks I featured on my videos anyway. A little background for everybody. This town of Smiths Falls has kind of a sordid past, and really it's got a sordid present too. There's a lot of drug stuff happening around here. When I was a kid, they used to call Smiths Falls Little Chicago. You know, it's a town with a population. When I was a kid, it had a population of 9,000. I think it's got a population of 12,000 now. Don't quote me on the numbers. I may be off a bit, but I believe that's right. The town of Perth, where I grew up in, which is 12 miles from Smiths Falls, has had a population of 6,000 consistently throughout my lifetime anyway. But here's the thing. There are always lots of things happening in Smiths Falls. There have been a lot of murders happen in Smiths Falls, most of which have gone unsolved. And so Smiths Falls, when I was a kid, was known as Little Chicago. That's what we used to call Smiths Falls, Little Chicago. Anyway, I guess statistically, Smiths Falls is one of the most dangerous small towns in Canada. Like I say, I actually like Smiths Falls for the most part. There's a lot of good people in Smiths Falls. But I never liked Perth because it's an old money town, and I never really fit in with that, you know. But anyway, Smiths Falls is more of a blue-collar town, and I fit in better in that kind of a place. But anyway, Smiths Falls is kind of a rough little town, though. And recently, we've had several disappearances of men. Some of whom, in fact, all of whom were connected to the drug world one way or another. So that seems to be a common thread with the disappearances. Now, one of those men was found, his dead body was found in a ditch, not too far, actually, from my old house that I lost. So he's at least accounted for, although I don't know if they've ever come up with any explanation as far as what happened there, you know. If they have, I haven't heard it. There's still like either two or three other men missing and presumed dead. And all these disappearances happened in a cluster. They all happened over the course of about a year, spanning from 2022, to 2023. It seems the disappearances have stopped now, at least for the time being. But other than the one guy that was found in a ditch, his body was found in a ditch. The others have never been heard from or found or recovered or whatever. So anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if this search of the Rideau River at Lower Reach Park is connected to that somehow. But, again, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Possibly there's another reason. They didn't specify the reason. I have a suspicion that it's connected with all that anyway, though. But yeah, that town that I show you quite often in my videos, there's been a lot of bad stuff has happened there. I've talked a little bit about some of it. I talked about the murder of Heather Fraser by a fellow by the name of Jamie Giff under the old Bastille train bridge in some of my videos. That happened in 1985. And I actually went to a day of Jamie Giff's trial. He's now out of prison. From what I understand, he's not allowed to come around this area anymore. That's part of his release conditions. He's on parole for the rest of his life because he's a lifer. He got first-degree murder for what he did. Basically, he forced Heather Fraser at knife point to go in under the Bastille Bridge with him. That's the old train bridge that's lifted like that. He caused her, like I say, you've seen it in my videos. He forced her to go under there. He raped her. And he stabbed her through her heart. But it was winter time and it was cold. He left her for dead, but she wasn't actually dead. And she managed to crawl on her hands and knees out from under there and across through the snow and everything. There's a fresh snowfall. And through the snow, I'm trying to make her way out to the sidewalk to get help across the park there. And her father had gone out looking for her because she hadn't come home. So he walked the route that she would have taken from high school. And he found her. And she was naked and bleeding profusely. But the cold had slowed the bleeding down enough that she had managed to expend her last bit of energy to get out of where she was and to make it part way at least out to the street. And she died in her father's arms. So that's the story with her. Eventually, it came out that it was Jamie Giff who did it. There was lots of evidence against him, and he went to prison. That was one story. I was 17 years old when that happened. These people were all just a little bit younger than me. I think Jamie Giff was 16. Heather Fraser was either 15 or 16. I didn't know them because I lived in Perth. I did know Jamie Giff's girlfriend, though. I had met her a few times. And anyway, yeah. She was one of the people who used to hang around with my cousin. I had a cousin who I grew up with who got heavy into drugs and whatnot. And she was one of the people he used to hang around with. And so I had met her. But, and that was Jamie Giff's girlfriend at the time. Anyway, so I had met her, a girl by the name of Annette Rogers. I won't get into all that. I had met her. I wasn't overly impressed with her. I'll just leave it at that, you know. Anyway, bottom line is, that was one. There was the murder of Teddy Bellingham in 1992 or 93. He was beat to death in an apartment. I tell that story in a video too. I actually showed the building. The building was called the Justice Building, ironically enough. And he was beat to death by a fellow by the name of Steve Allen. And I had met Steve Allen at a house party in Perth in 1985, I believe it was, or 86. He and his two henchmen that were backing him up. And he actually hauled me out of the house forcibly and he and his friends kicked the crap out of me in the driveway because I wouldn't tell a joke. They wanted me to tell them a joke, and I wouldn't. And so they beat me up. And I only met him the one time, but it was him that killed this young native Canadian boy, this Teddy Bellingham. Teddy Bellingham was a ward of the Children's Aid Society. And I actually tell the story of the beating I took from Steve Allen in a video on this channel. You'd have to go back a ways to find these videos, but they are there. Anyway, they spent a night beating Teddy Bellingham up, beating him to death in a bedroom in an apartment, in Steve Allen's apartment in the Justice Building downtown. They blamed him for stealing some stuff from them. Whether he did or he didn't, I don't know. But that was their reason for doing what they did anyway. He was a 15-year-old boy. He was a ward of the Children's Aid Society. He had run away from a group home, and he just got lost in the shuffle. There was nobody cared. And he wandered around on the streets of Smiths Falls. The group home he ran away from was in Brockville, which is about 50 miles from Smiths Falls. Made his way to Smiths Falls and wandered the streets in Smiths Falls. Befriended Steve Allen and his friends. Probably Steve and the same two goons that worked me over with Steve. Anyway, the three of them spent an evening murdering Teddy Bellingham, and then they buried Teddy Bellingham out at a hunting camp property that belonged to Steve Allen. And a year or so later, one of his friends that was mixed up in it had an attack of conscience and went and confessed, told the whole story, led the police out to where the young lad was buried on the hunting camp property. And the authorities had pretty much forgotten about him. They'd pretty much forgotten that Teddy Bellingham ever existed, which is beyond sad, but the system failed that way, fella, big time. Anyway, Steve Allen is also out of prison now. But he is a lifer too, I believe. I think he'll be on parole for the rest of his life, but he's out of prison. When I was a kid, there were several murders in Smiths Falls. There was Mr. Cowan that had Cowan's Dairy. He lived in an apartment above the dairy, and he woke up to find an intruder in his apartment who he tried to fight off, and he ended up being murdered. There was a GIF. There was a store called GIF's Grocery Store. When I was a little kid, it was still on the go. It was run by the brother of the murder victim, a fellow by the name of Johnny GIF. It was just down the road from where we lived. I was in that store many times. Like I say, by the time I was around, Johnny GIF was running it. Johnny GIF was the brother of the first owner who was murdered in that store. Yeah, so there was that. There were quite a few murders anyway in Smiths Falls back then, and that's how it got the name Little Chicago. But I guess today the OPP are going to be down there searching, not dredging really, but searching the Rideau River at Lower Reach Park. And so I have a feeling it's connected to these disappearances, but I don't know that. They didn't say that, so maybe it's something else. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe some answers will be forthcoming. All right. OPP, by the way, stands for Ontario Provincial Police. I have a bad history with them. I don't think a whole lot of them, but if they can get some answers with regard to this homicide, or one of the homicides, then good on them. If that's what they're trying to do, then good on them. At least they're doing something constructive this time, hopefully. Anyway, we'll talk to you later.